Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and we are live here. Hopefully everyone had an amazing 4th of July weekend. I got an interesting story to tell y'all because my family, they are a little fireworks crazy, and let's just say they tried to shoot off fireworks on Saturday. Didn't go well, so then they tried to do it on Sunday. I'll tell you a little bit more about this wild and crazy story later on here on the Raiders Report. Also, I don't think I'm ever going to eat a hot dog. Not that I would have anyway, but watching Joey Chestnut and all those guys get down, it's pretty crazy. Now, some of the stuff that we're going to talk about here on today's show is obviously we're going to get into some news and rumors. Got 2 mailbags on tap. We're also going to look at some records that I believe that you could see some players end up breaking this upcoming season. Like, could Derek Carr break the yards record, the touchdowns record in a single season? We'll debate about it. And then it's the middle of July. I wanted to get a little crazy. I wanted to go balls to the wall. I got 5 wild trade ideas that I wouldn't mind for the Raiders to try to go and pull off. So what I want you guys to do right now for a shout-out is this. I want, how many passing touchdowns will Derek Carr throw this upcoming season? His career high is 32. He has another season where he's thrown for 28. Besides that, that's the cap that it's been at. However, he's got Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, Davante Adams. He's had some other good receiving duos in the past with Michael Crabtree, Amari Cooper, but he has never had the amount of talent, and especially at the skill position players on the offensive side of the football, that the Raiders have right now. On top of that, no disrespect to Gruden, no disrespect to Greg Olsen. I think the offensive coordinators, the mental minds are a lot stronger in this Raiders offense right now. So if you want to shout out here on the Raiders Report, let me know how many touchdowns for DC this upcoming season. 32 plus for Thrash, 46 for Drew. Javen Jackson says 50. Lori Lamb says 50 plus. Aaron York 40. Hershey Squirt, it's a hell of a name, 37. King Sanchez 42. Angel is going to go with 50. Eric Smith 36. L.I. Raider 31241. So you guys are anticipating big numbers for Derek Carr. I got a super chat coming up here on today's show, and it's in from Armando. Would you rather try and sign Odell or Ndamukong Suh? Odell Beckham is the better player, and to be honest, I'd probably actually rather have Beckham from top to bottom. However, Ndamukong Suh fits a bigger need to me. Like, Beckham is still a probably top 20 wide receiver. Suh, though, is definitely going to fit that bigger overall need. It would depend how much money OBJ would end up bringing in, but to compare the two, I don't really think it's quite apples to apples. We got an apple, and then we got a watermelon over here. I don't even know if that compares, but Suh's more realistic, but let's be real. Odell's a better player overall. All right, how about this, okay? And I've thought about this. I put this on Twitter. I also have the live poll up at the top of the show. If you haven't voted yet, please make sure that you do. 77% of the votes say yes. 24% right now say no. Will Carr be the greatest Raiders quarterback ever when he retires? Y for yes, or N for no. When I really sit back, and if you're a numbers person, you look at the numbers, and it's obvious that DC has the best numbers out of any Raiders quarterback in terms of passing yards, passing touchdowns. He's number one in all those categories. Pass completions, attempts, it's there. And then a lot of other numbers, he's right up there with them. Obviously, though, a lot of people, when you look at the quarterback position, you talk about wins. You talk about playoff wins, Super Bowl wins. The fact that DC has a losing record, the fact that Derek Carr doesn't have a Super Bowl win, the fact that DC has never won a playoff game, I understand a lot of people type in the end for no. That's not what I asked. I'm asking, when he retires, will he be the greatest Raiders quarterback ever? I mean, if he wins a Super Bowl, I know I wasn't alive in those old days, but you do have to put those numbers into consideration, and the longevity that Carr would have played for absolutely goes into that conversation. I also understand that football is a lot more pass-heavy now, that defenses can't play that the way that they used to be able to play. I am curious, so what do y'all think here? Rustin Long, Paul Gaines, King Sanchez, all spamming yes, yes, yes. I'm actually surprised on the amount of yeses that are coming in, because not that Carr and people don't respect Carr, but Stabler, I mean, to me, when I think of a winner, I think of Stabler a lot more of a winner than DC. Carr's probably the more talented player, but to me, also being a quarterback is being a leader of men. And there was something about when you go back and you look at some of those highlights, or you go back and you look at some of those old games, when Stabler was in that huddle, he commanded respect. And not that Carr doesn't command respect, but there was a little bit of a different, I'll say, leadership aspect behind that. Another super chat coming in from Armando. It says, Carr needs a Super Bowl and MVP of the league. I don't agree with the MVP part. Yes, if it happens, it does go further. But I think for Derek Carr's legacy to be the best quarterback on the Raiders of all time, that Super Bowl goes a lot further than an MVP would. The Super Bowl, it almost needs to happen. Now, if he never gets one and he still has twice as many yards, twice as many touchdowns, then the conversation will come up again. But I believe a Super Bowl does need to happen. So we had 4th of July weekend, and man, I was literally on the phone with my cousin Erica, and she was FaceTiming me, showing me the fireworks that we had going on. So I was like, all right, this is pretty interesting. Also, throw in the comments, I'm going to give some shout-outs. Best 4th of July food. I'm Team Cheeseburger. That's where it's at. I don't like hot dogs. I know. I'm weird. So I'm FaceTiming my cousin Erica, and she showed me a video, and my Uncle Wayne and my dad, what they do every year is they build this giant platform, okay? And then they put fireworks on top of these platforms, and one by one, they light them off. They're shooting up in the air, and I'm not going to lie, the family, these fireworks go on for 20, 25 minutes, and it's a pretty good display. My Uncle Wayne, my dad, definitely both major pyromaniacs. What does that mean? You guys can Google it. Well, all of a sudden, I noticed that some of the fireworks start shooting horizontal, and then all of a sudden, my entire family, which is probably like 55 and up at this point, everyone's ducking for cover, and then I see a firework land underneath an automobile. Luckily, the car did not explode, but let's just say the fireworks display ended early. My dad, though, and my Uncle Wayne, they got back together. They figured out a plan, and the fireworks went off the next day. But my Aunt Lisa, she was like, no, you ain't shooting them off at my house. All right, y'all, seriously, best 4th of July food, what are we thinking? Quinn Lewis says brisket, grilled hot dogs from Cameron Sprout, ribs, green beans, and beans from Lori Lamp, burgers from Juan Hernandez. What else we got? Barbecue chicken, corn on the cob, bacon, cheeseburgers. Holy shit, wait a minute. Hustlin' Hooligan says peanut butter, jalapeno, bacon, cheeseburgers. Yo, that sounds fire. I would absolutely devour that. No, Sam can't have it. He's allergic to nuts. He was the kid, had to have a nut-free table in high school. It's all good, though. We got Raider Man 01. What up, brother? Why isn't Plunkett in the Hall of Fame? I don't get it. Just win, baby. I think when you look at numbers, right, because from an actual standpoint of impressive numbers, Jim Plunkett's numbers actually aren't that impressive. I get it, long time ago. But I also think it's just the whole Raider thing. I mean, the fact that Cliff Branch had to wait as long as he did, the fact that Tom Flores just got in, I don't really have a great answer for you. To me, Flores should have got in 10 years ago, maybe even before that, 20 years ago at this point. So the fact that Plunkett's not in, it's probably because the numbers don't jump off the page, but the guy did win, so you got to give him some credit there. Another super chat coming in here from Armando, who is the MVP so far. Just want to say you and Samoan Raider are the only sources I go for Raiders reports. Thank you for keeping it real and never being biased. I try not to be biased. I do like to have a good time, and you know we party here and there, and we're always trying to give you guys the information. But as far as I'm concerned, you can get your Raiders information everywhere. I do think being here at Chat Sports, you see a lot of other content creators. I think the Raiders actually have some of the best coverage on YouTube with all these different people that make videos. You have to remember, though, as a content creator, you got to make videos, and it's also about entertainment. So the thing I hate the most is when somebody says clickbait. Usually, that just means you're too lazy to click into the video. So how about this? If you're excited for Raiders football, if you're that dude that's literally counting down the days until we get this season kicked off, I want you to spam Raiders, and I want the real ones, because for the people watching the Raiders Report in July, this goes to you, because I get it. There's a lot of people out there that they don't want to keep up to date with the team. But I also make this point. It's very important to keep up with the team every single day. That way, when stuff starts happening in the preseason, if stuff starts happening in the regular season, you're kind of already going there with the tea leaves. You already know some of the stories, the background reports. So I'm always Team Raiders every single day, 365. Shout out to Bryce, King Corona, Adrian, Mark, Rich Hand, Joey Ross, Will Dunn, Ty Davis, Hustlin' Hooligan, R-Dog, Mark, Will, King. We got a name that's King with XJVGLG187, Will Dunn, Juan Hernandez. Major shout out to all of y'all. So coming up here live on the Raiders Report, I got some news, I got some rumors. We're going to talk about a little bit of an injury update around Johnathan Hankins. 2 mailbags, so make sure you guys are using hashtag Raiders so you can super chat. Then we're going to look at some Raiders records that I believe could be broken this upcoming season. Single season records. And then it's going to be on Rumble and Rumble only. I have 5 wild trade ideas around the silver and black. That's all coming up right now here on the Raiders Report. Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and we got some news, we got some rumors to talk about. I'm going to give you an update on Johnathan Hankins, his injury. Brett Favre, he said some interesting things about Davante Adams and Carr. We'll talk about it. And then Jacob Hollister, could he be on his way out? Bleacher Report seems to think so. Now, if you guys are a part of the nation and you're a diehard fan, whether you're watching, looking for news, rumors, and if you just want a whole bunch of more free content, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and this is the time of the year that having that notification bell on, it helps you out a lot. Why? That way you just don't miss anything. So, to the people who I know are a part of the Noti gang that try to be one of the very first people to comment on our videos, Untouchable Raider 1960, as always, Raiders for Life, Junior, Raiderville 13, and Phil. If you want to see your name on a future Raiders Report show, subscribe and turn on those notifications. Believe it or not, it helps me out a lot. It really, truly does. Let's now look at the injury update around Johnathan Hankins. And again, this is not a big-time injury update. This is me just being close to Hank and connecting some dots here. So he was able to go home for the 4th of July weekend. Remember, Hankins had surgery on May 17th, and even though he doesn't expect to play in the preseason, this is good news. And the reason why it's good news is because I talked to Hankins and I said, hey, man, I want to get you down here to Dallas, Texas. I want to get you on the Raiders Report. How can I do that? He flat out told me, him and his team said, he has to be cleared by trainers in order to fly. Once that happens, then the ball can get rolling. I don't know if he's going to be coming on my show, but I know that there was a point where he wasn't allowed to fly, and now he's able to fly. He was able to go home. He was able to visit his family. So to me, that is good news. He is progressing in the right direction because, believe it or not, Hankins might not be this guy anymore, 9th year into the NFL, who's going to be the best DT in the league. But he's a veteran, he's a good run stopper, and this team needs some extra DTs. So this is some good news. So all I want you guys to do right now is wish big-time Hank a speedy recovery. Show the guy some love, even though he's still probably licking his wounds after losing a burger-eating contest to a 5'10", 180-pound soaking wet white guy. But hey, it's all good. Type those 90s in the chat right now to give big-time Hank a little bit of love and a speedy recovery. Coming up next here on the Raiders Report, Brett Favre, he rips Davante Adams. I've seen a few people talk about this on the web, and here's what the entire story is. Essentially, all Brett Favre said was that he believes Davante Adams' numbers are going to decline this upcoming season. In fact, he said, I would be shocked if Adams maintains the same production. And this is, coming off 2 very, very impressive years for Davante, where a guy put up 123 catches. He had 18 touchdowns the year before. Really solid numbers with back-to-back NFL MVP Aaron Rodgers. Now, if you're looking for the exact quote from Brett Favre, well, guess what? You're in luck. No disrespect to Davante at all. Zero disrespect. I do think that Davante will make Derek Carr better, and in time, they will be a dynamic duo. Now, will it be the duo that Aaron and Davante had? Time will tell. I think Derek Carr is a very good quarterback, but he's not in Aaron's league yet. He may never be, and that's no disrespect either. But I do think that Davante owes a great deal of gratitude to Aaron and the Packers for drafting him. That's not to say he's not a great player, because he is a tremendous player, and we'll see that with Las Vegas. But it's just hard to shift gears, especially from a player as prolific as Aaron Rodgers. I'd be shocked if he had the same year he had this year. That's not to say he can't do it, but I would be shocked. So what do you guys think about that quote from Brett Favre? Obviously, he's an NFL Hall of Famer. You got to have some respect for him, whether or not you like the jeans he wears. But what do you think? Will Adams' numbers dip this upcoming season for the Raiders? It's a Y for yes and for no. Let me know what you guys are thinking, because for me, well, I'm going to give you my answer, but first, I want you to go give us a follow over on Rumble at rumble.com/Raiders Report. If you're watching this video live, you're going to get an exclusive video during Rumble After Hours. I've been chasing, I've been clawing, I've been trying to get to 2,000 subscribers over on Rumble. We need 143 more. So if you could do me a big favor, and if you want to be able to listen to Raiders videos ad-free, and you can listen to them like a podcast, minimize the screen, throw it in your pocket, go to rumble.com/Raiders Report, and please give us a follow. So are Davante Adams, are the numbers going to be dipping this upcoming season? I'm going to give this one 3 just win babies, and I think it's pretty likely. And I'm kind of in the same boat with Brett Favre. This is no disrespect to Davante. This is no disrespect to Derek Carr. I see this. I have watched DC play for a long time, and he's not Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, and you shouldn't be offended by that. I also know this. Rodgers, throughout his entire career, has never been afraid to focus on one receiver and pepper him with targets. That's also the Green Bay Packers' fault, because Davante essentially has been the only player there. I look at this Raiders offense right now, and I think to myself, well, if I look at numbers, if I go back to my fantasy football days, Carr is going to spread the ball to Darren Waller. He's going to throw the ball to Hunter Renfrow. He's going to spread the ball out because that's what he does. And then when you look at some of the past numbers from Davante, they're impressive, no doubt about it. Last season, 123 grabs, 1,553 yards, 11 touchdowns. Year before that, 115 catches, 1,374 yards, 18 touchdowns. I mean, the amount of targets that he's getting are substantial. And when I go and look at overall projections, I look at opportunities, whether it's on the defensive side of the football or offensive side of the football. When I project numbers, I look at opportunities, and the opportunity for a receiver is targets. Last season, Davante Adams had 169 targets. Last in 2020, 149, 2019, 127, 2018, 169 again, 117. The reason why I believe Adams' numbers are going to drop is because he's not going to have as many opportunities. Why? Because Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow are going to also get targets. Now, I'm not saying Adams isn't going to have a healthy target share. He's going to be the number one targeted receiver that the Raiders have. But the number one most targeted player in a Derek Carr offense over the past 5 seasons, Renfrow had 128 last season. Waller, that 1 year, he had 145. That was a very high number, but even that is 24 less than what Adams had last season. 117, 101, 101. All I'm saying is this. He's not going to have as many opportunities. Touchdowns, though, I wouldn't be surprised if they're still easily double digits. So how about this? Because I know some people are probably not going to like that I'm saying, oh, the numbers are going to dip. But, you know, it's my job to try to be as real with y'all no matter what. And if I'm not real with y'all, then, you know, hey, honestly, I would tell you to go watch another show. So I want you to predict receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Please predict that stat line right now for Davante Adams. The next story coming up here on the Raiders Report is going to be around a trade room around Jacob Hollister. But hey, man, I want to give major shout out to the people who are giving us those super thanks, which is a new feature that YouTube has where if you can't watch the show live, it's like sending in a super chat. So shout out to Christopher Leonard who said, Mitch, forget Sue. All good. I get you there, bro. Shout out to Christopher Keefe. Yeah, so if we go back to it, trade for Daron Payne, have him teach Butler, also sign Hayden to help our DBs. In terms of Ndamukong Suh, you can if getting Daron Payne was the upper hand of Suh, I would take Daron Payne in a trade over Ndamukong Suh every single day of the week. But hey, why not both, right? Also, we had a few more flowing in here from Christopher Keefe. Much love to you, my guy. Mark's always throwing in the 10s. So, Mark, you're a special one. Luke Atkinson, hopefully I pronounced that one right. And then Bruce Renz. I don't know if you're trying to troll me, but people always call me Mitchell Renz, and I got my Uncle Bruce, so I was like, what the hell's going on here? And then Jaime Tice or Jamie Tice. Much love. Appreciate you guys sending in those super thanks. And if you want to shout out on a future Raiders Report show, you can click that little heart button underneath the video. Believe it or not, especially super thanks in the month of July with numbers down. They do. They go a very, very long way. All right, the next story here, again, is around Jacob Hollister, and is he getting dealt? Bleacher Report, they released an article titled, Raiders' Top Trade Candidates Ahead of 2022 Training Camp. Remember, training camp starts July 18th for the Raiders for rookies, quarterbacks, and UDFAs. The vets, they report July 20th. Hollister was one of 3 players that were mentioned. If you want to check out the article and see the other guys mentioned, you can probably connect the dots on one of them. Las Vegas is loaded at the tight end position. When I say loaded, you got Waller, you got Foster Moreau. That's arguably the best tight end duo in the entire league. I believe Hollister's the 3rd best tight end on the roster. But hey, if there's teams out there that need an extra guy, I understand trying to make the move. This is what Bleacher Report had to say on trading Jacob Hollister. The Raiders, they added Jacob Hollister to their tight end room this offseason, and the 28-year-old could serve as a valuable depth at the position. Hollister has experience playing for McDaniels. He was with the New England Patriots in 2017 and 2018. He has served as a complimentary player with multiple franchises. However, playing time in Las Vegas could be hard to come by for the Wyoming product. The Raiders have a legitimate star in tight end Darren Waller and a very capable backup in Foster Moreau. And they're 100% right. You got Waller, you got Moreau. I'm not 100% sure on how many tight ends the Raiders decide to keep. I believe they keep 4 because they're going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets, which if they only keep 3, that could be a pretty interesting thing when you talk about Hollister, Bowers, Horsted, and then Fotheringham. I actually believe that Hollister would get the most in a trade compared to all those other players because he's played on some different rosters. Let's continue these quotes here from Bleacher Report on trading Hollister. If the Raiders are confident in their top 2 tight ends, and they should be, Hollister could become a prime trade chip to offer to a tight end needy franchise. His best season came in 2019 with the Seattle Seahawks, where Hollister produced 41 catches for 349 yards and 3 scores. Hollister is signed to a modest $1.2 million contract that includes just $76,250 guaranteed. Las Vegas should have little trouble flipping him for a high day 3 draft pick if a team comes calling about a pass-catching tight end. So they say high-end day 3. I'm not 100% going to agree with that because high-end day 3, that kind of sounds like a 4th or a 5th rounder. That's not going to happen for Hollister. But what happens if an NFL team was like, all right, you guys want to move on from him? We need somebody that can block. We need somebody that can catch, can play in some different schemes. 6th-round pick for Jacob Hollister. Would you do it? Let me know in the comments right now. I want you to type T for trade. Or if you're like, nah, man, I'd rather hang on to him, type P for pass. If a team wanted to offer more, obviously I would take it. Personally, though, I want to hold on to Hollister because of the past injuries that we've seen from Foster, the past injuries that we've seen to Waller, and I believe that you're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets. So T for trade, P for pass. Let's say that NFL team tries to make the deal. One of the things Bleacher Report alluded to were tight end needy teams. I think Seattle, who's not necessarily a tight end needy team, but they have those connections with Hollister in his best season back in 2019, the Minnesota Vikings might have the worst tight end room in the entire NFL. The Panthers, the Saints, they desperately need tight end help. Yes, the 49ers have George Kittle, but besides George Kittle, who often gets hurt, that room is not very good, and they've gone up. They've seen Hollister play in years past. So those are my Hollister trade destinations. Hopefully y'all made it this far in the video, and if you could, I would really appreciate it if you gave me a like. All right, y'all, I want you to name a player that you believe that the Raiders could trade. So in that Bleacher Report article, they listed out 3 names. The 3 names were Clelin Ferrell. I know, shocking. Probably most of y'all are going to type Ferrell. The next name that came in was Jarrett Stidham, and then it was Jacob Hollister. I get that a lot of y'all are going to type Clee, which is the way it goes. Somebody's typing 28. I don't know if you're talking about Derek Carr touchdowns or if you mean Josh Jacobs. But, yes, most of the votes right now, like Abram from King Higgins, Vincenzo People says Clee, Peak Boogie is going to go with Clelin, Ferrell. Joseph says Drake. Li Raider 312 says Drake. Hollister from Christopher Leonard. Keep on getting those votes in. And if you like trades, I got a special trade video on Rumble after hours. So if you want a special shout out, all I want you to do, I see Vegas Boondoggy. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Over on Rumble, if you want to shout out, go to Rumble right now, spam Raiders, because we're going to do 5 wild trade ideas for the silver and black. They're wild. I'm telling y'all right now. I try to make them a little bit different, but if you're on Rumble, you will be able to see that show. If not, well, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer on YouTube. So coming up now here on the Raiders Report, it's mailbag time. Use hashtag Raiders, or you can send in a super chat to get your questions, to get your comments on the show. I think I see a $50 super chat from Patrick B. So, Patrick, if you want me to do a shot of Fireball, we can do the shots of Fireball. I didn't plan on drinking today, but for a $50 super chat, I'll drink for some Fireball. If you're just trying to support the show, hey, man, I appreciate that as well. So use hashtag Raiders, or you can send in a super chat to get those questions, those comments featured on the show. Patrick, I'll let you comment what you want me to do down there, and then we'll get it going. Hashtag Raiders or super chat, get on this mailbag. It's mailbag time here on the Raiders Report, and remember, this video was captured, or I guess recorded, is what I should say, on Tuesday. I am going to be away for a wedding this upcoming weekend. I'm going to be a best man. I'm a little bit nervous. I got to give a best man speech. But if you see anything that has changed, please don't get mad. We'll try to do our best to keep you updated as the week goes on. The first one coming in here is from Patrick B., who's been, I'd probably say, the Raiders Report MVP over the last month. He goes, Raiders! Yo, Mitch, I do feel that Leather will make a jump like Miller did in his second year. Any wide receiver 3 news, late night with Chuck is awesome. So recently on Locals, I've been doing late nights with Chuck where I go home. Chuck and I have I answer questions, and he just does his thing squeaking toys here and there. But I'm hoping Leatherwood can take that next step. The issue is Leatherwood isn't nearly the athlete that Colton Miller is. I do think Leatherwood is going to be a lot better this upcoming season. I still view him as a guard. Maybe I'm going to be wrong in that. Maybe Carmen Brasillo can work with him. In terms of wide receiver 3 news, you're not really going to get any new updates that haven't already come out, because this is the time of the year where players are relaxing, they're chilling. I believe it's Keelan Cole, DeMarcus Robinson, Matt Collins. It's going to be a 3 wide receiver race for wide receiver 3. Li Raider 312, what up, my man? Just watched your boy Graph. You're going to do a bold prediction show yourself. You know, I've thought about doing bold predictions. To be honest, though, they don't ever really do all that well on the channel. And then, since I've done this show for so many years, my boss is like, why are you doing that video again? I don't think you should do it. But I might do it if it really gets down to it. I just try to get a little bit different. I'd rather do a bold video in terms of, like, wild trade ideas. To me, that's a little bit more fun. But I am doing something where you might break some records. So, we'll see. All right, David Taken, you're next up here on the Raiders Report. What is the likelihood of us signing Sue and or Williams for the right side of the offensive line? I would say Ndamukong is way more likely. I'd probably give him, honestly, one just win, baby. Darrell Williams is probably less than 2-3%. It's because the Raiders have a lot of confidence in the offensive lineman already. But we're going to have to be patient. I don't think the Raiders are done making moves yet. Sue is more likely, though, than Darrell Williams, even though it kills me because, to me, Darrell Williams is a guy that I would absolutely go out and get. All right, let's look at Ty Davis. He's predicting Davante Adams' stat right here. He's going to go between 1,000 to 1,100 yards, 12 to 14 touchdowns, 110 to 120 receptions. So I'm on board for the touchdown numbers. I think they're actually pretty accurate. 110 to 120 catches, that's fine. But if a player like Davante catches the ball 110, 120 times and only produces this amount of yards, that's a problem. Like, for him to be around 1,000, 1,100 yards, I would say he's probably closer to 80 catches, 85 catches, because he's a good yards after the catch guy. He's not somebody who's going to pick up 10, that's even less than 10 yards per catch. Like 9.5 yards per catch for Davante Adams. No, that ain't going to happen. Let's go to Raider Man 01. I agree, Mitch. We have a lot of weapons. Don't be surprised if they all had a little drop-off in stats. You're right. And I think if you were to ask Darren Waller, you were to ask Hunter Renfrow, hell, you asked Davante Adams, your numbers might go down a little bit, but the overall team's going to be better, and you're hoping that that results into more wins. Every single one of those players will be like, that's fine. It's a team sport. So, yes, individual stats might go down, but if anything, that's better for us because that makes it even more difficult for a defensive coordinator to try to scheme because you can't double-team Davante, you can't double-team Waller, you can't double-team Renfrow. Why? Because then the other two guys are going to absolutely feast. All right, what up, Christopher Leonard, sending in those super thanks and watching live shows. What up, bro? Mitch, you see the Bucs may release wide receiver Brashad Perriman. Do the Raiders maybe look to add him as another weapon? They might try to do their due diligence. They might try to at least see how he is. I'll say this. Brashad Perriman's had one good year. His only good season he's ever had was in 2019. That was the year famous Jameis had that 30 for 30-yard touchdowns, INTs over 5,000 yards. He does have some speed. However, a lot of injury issues, and I would rather if the Raiders were to look at a receiver that could potentially be cut, I'd rather just look at Nelson Agholor because I think he could actually get cut. This next one coming up here on the Raider Sports from Sig Grizzly. Will Chandler Jones be a bust? I don't believe that he's going to be a bust. I think it depends what you're classifying as a bust. Like, if you anticipate him to have 15-plus sacks, no, I don't think that's going to happen. He did have 10.5 sacks last season. Yes, 5 came in week 1. But I just see him being way too talented in a defense that fits him way too well for him to be a bust. Now, if he has less than 8 sacks in a year, yeah, that might not be good. I just don't see that happening. Chandler Jones is a sack machine. So speaking of this, I want you to give me a number. Look into that crystal ball of yours. Tell me if the Raiders win the Super Bowl. But also, how many sacks will Chandler Jones end up having this season? Let's go look in the comments. Let's be different here. Let me know what you guys are thinking. How many sacks for Chandler Jones this upcoming season? The next question up here on the Raiders Report. Mitch, love the show, bro. Raiders on the Rays. How's Chuck the Pup going? Chuck the Pup is good. He's going to have a weird week, though, because Alex and I are out of town at a wedding. Luckily, though, Uncle Chase is going to be watching him, but Chuck's doing good. If you guys care what Chuck's doing, you can always follow me on Instagram at MitchellRenz365, or it's Chuck the Pup. Jenkins, you're next up here, bro. What is the latest on Sue, and is he coming to the Raiders or not? The latest on Sue is, if you follow him on Twitter, he just talks about the housing market and how bad the economy is right now. In terms of him to the Raiders, there's not a real update. I know that the Raiders want to add extra players, but they might just wait at this current juncture to see what guys look like at minicamp, at training camp. There was a report that came out, though, that the Raiders do anticipate every single player, whether they're looking for a new contract or not, will be at training camp. Not a lot of NFL teams can say that, and I think it speaks volumes of the leadership there. So nothing really new on Sue. But as far as I'm concerned, and Dominican wants to be a Raider, and if that's all that he wants, and he's talking to Crosby, he's talking to Chandler Jones, that should tell you everything you need to know. Raiders are interested, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. Now, y'all, we make videos here on YouTube. We also make videos over on Rumble as well. And a lot of times, I release videos out on Rumble before I put them out on YouTube. On top of that, it's ad-free. You can also listen to the videos like a podcast, put them in your pocket, let it play, because I know it's something that YouTube can't do. If you want even more politics, news, all that kind of good stuff, give us a follow at rumble.com/Raiders Report. I've been trying to get to 2,000 over on Rumble for a while. Bosses are getting a little bit mad at me, so if you guys could help me out, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. All right, let's go to Loud Storm next up here on the Raiders Report. I know we have a lot of offensive weapons, but what if we sign Marvin Jones? 2 issues with that. 1, Marvin Jones, you'd have to trade for him. And I've talked about a Marvin Jones trade before on the Raiders Report. Like, if you go on YouTube, you type in Marvin Jones Raiders Report, I'll break down the article that talked about Jones being traded to Silver and Black. He's a good receiver. He had 4 touchdowns last season, 9 touchdowns the last 2 years. But with Jacksonville adding all these extra players, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, you could get him at a discount. My argument to you would be Marvin Jones is a better receiver than Laviska Shenault, but I think you'd have to give up a lot more for Marvin Jones compared to Laviska Shenault. And on top of that, Chenault's way, way cheaper, and he's a lot younger. So, I know. Marvin Jones now, Laviska Shenault, long haul. Thomas Barigo Any update on the Waller contract? No, there has not been an update on the Waller contract. Again, the only update that I've heard recently is that the Raiders expect every single one of their players to be at training camp. And when I heard that, the first name I thought of was Darren Waller, because I've been told he's going to get a brand new contract. He wants a new contract extension on top of that. So the idea is, no, nothing new here, but I'm still going to sit here and say Darren Waller will get a new contract before the season kicks off. We got Riley and Kyle. Could Lester Cotton make the final roster? Could he? Yes. Do I think it's likely? No. And the reason why I don't believe that it's likely is because if the Raiders keep 10 offensive linemen, I'm a believer that 10th lineman is going to be Thayer Munford, who the Raiders drafted in the 7th round. Yes, they drafted him late, but this regime still drafted him, right? If the Raiders keep 11 offensive linemen, which I just think that's too many, then Lester has a shot. The other good thing for Cotton is apparently he was an absolute maniac in minicamp. He was playing really well. He looked solid, but that's also because some of the other players were sitting out, resting, and, well, the coaches wanted to see what they had in certain guys. But, hey, you let me know. Why for yes and for no? I've seen a few people put out a 53-man roster projection with Cotton making the team. I'm going to type my N for no, but it's not impossible. If you were to tell me, hey, Mitch, who are the top 10 roster bubble candidates, or who are the final 10 players that could be in or out, he would make that list. I think he ends up making the practice squad. He's a good player out of Alabama. He's got some good background. It's just the Raiders have some other players at those positions at offensive guard. But, hey, why for yes and for no? Raider 24 Nation, what up, my dude? Love what you do, Mitch. Been a fan of for a long time. I actually did a super the day my son was born. He is now needing heart surgery. Can we get a shout out for Raider Andrew Rogers? You know, I believe I remember this because there's been 2 people over the past 2 months that were in the delivery room and sent in a super chat and were super hyped. And Raider Andrew Rogers just, I believe that was the one where you literally send in a super chat and then like an hour later you send in another one that the baby was born. So I believe that was you, right? Let me totally, if I'm wrong, let me know. If I'm right, please. I'm curious, but big shout out to you, man. That's awesome. And prayers, thoughts, wishes, if everyone could send in those thoughts and prayers in the comments for Raider and for Andrew, that'd be great. What up, King? What could you expect to get for Drake in a trade? It depends which team's making the deal, right? Because Kenyan, Drake, running back position, realistically, I would say right now, the only team that makes a lot of sense in terms of trading for a back would be the New Orleans Saints. And a lot of times, trading for a back happens either because of an injury or because of a suspension. I believe Drake could probably get you a 5th, maybe a 6th-round pick because of his contract. The Raiders, no matter what, are going to eat some of that money. Yes, they have reworked it. He's got like 4 void years on the back end of that deal. I would say a 5th, maybe a 6th-round pick for Kenyan Drake, and that's just the way it is. I know. That's just the way it is. All right, y'all, we got a lot of questions, a lot of comments here during this mailbag. And if I missed any of your stuff, you can always hit me up on IG and on Twitter. I'm at MitchellRenz365. If you want to see what's going on in my daily life, please do so. If you want to see what I'm doing this weekend, because, again, I'm going to be one of the best men in my best friend's wedding. I'm super stoked to celebrate him getting married. I knew he was going to get married to this girl. He was my roommate in college, and we're going to be posting some cool videos. I'm going to be having a good time, but it's also an easier way for me to get to know y'all a little bit closer. And let's face it, I can post a lot more stuff on IG on my stories or on my Twitter than I can make videos around, so stay up to date. What up, Bardog? You're next up here on the Raiders Report. Is it likely we try to get Williams? Daryl Williams, no, it's not likely. And it's because the Raiders believe in the tackles and offensive linemen that they already have. Vincenzo Peoples, one of the OGs. Should the Raiders go out and get Jalen Reagor? You know, Rager's been a name that I've mentioned a few times because he's a good receiver. He's got some speed coming out of TCU. The issue is for Philadelphia, it was a bad fit. But the part of me where I think, I'm all right, well, if the Raiders could do what they did with Nelson Agholor, could they potentially do that with Jalen Reagor? If Philadelphia was like, hey, 6th-round pick for Reagor, he's yours, I would do that trade. Clash with Zeus. How many seasons before McDaniels and Ziegler are on the hot seat? Hopefully that answer is 0. Because if they come out and they win this season, you're great. I can also say it could be 1. Because if McDaniels and Ziegler don't make it to the playoffs, and if they don't have a winning season, like 10 wins, I mean, you heard Derek Carr say it just like a week or 2 weeks ago, that this team would then have it would be a failing season. And I remembered talking to my dad about this, and I'm telling you, if the Raiders don't win 10 games, they don't make this playoffs, those guys are going to be on the hot seat. I'm not saying they're going to get fired, but the temperature is going to get turned up a little bit, because if you can make the playoffs last year with everything that went on, with this talented roster, you still turn the heat up, man. All right, what up, Cade Ross? Can we make a trade for Harrison Smith? You know, Harrison Smith is an interesting name, and good safety for the Minnesota Vikings. I actually still think he's one of the best in the biz. He just got like a brand new contract. It was like 4 years, $64 million extension, I believe is what it is. The issue is, if Minnesota trades him, they only save it's like $3.5 million. And for the Vikings, I wouldn't make that deal. If Harrison Smith wanted to come play for the Raiders, yes, I would do it. It's just, I don't see why Minnesota would move on from a defensive leader. I understand that they drafted Lewis Cine also in the first round, but to me, that team's still trying to win right now. And if you're in win now mode, you don't move on from one of your cornerstone players. $5 super chat coming in from Cameron Sproul. Mitch, give us one bombshell cut out of all the NFL teams out of training camp. So, a big-time surprise cut? Is that what you're looking for? I mean, I'll go with the name that you guys have probably heard me say before. I think Nelson Agholor is a legit cut candidate, and it's because New England traded for Davante Parker. He didn't work out all that well in their first year. On top of that, they gave Jacoby Myers something like a new deal. They have another receiver, but right now Agholor is like the 4th guy in that offense. Plus, you got a brand new regime that just came in. My surprise cut candidate will be Nelson Agholor. All right, y'all, if you want to shout out here on the Raiders Report, type me right now. Come on, let's get it going. I got EBK Randy. What up, what up, what up, my guys? If you want to shout out and it's easier on Rumble, head over to Rumble right now. I got T. Yawn. We got 2 fans 424 over on Rumble. You guys are battling out right now in the Rumble comment section. If you want to shout out, spam me. We got Patrick B, King Higgins, Diego Torres. Excuse me, Bradley Hicks, PG2869. Angel Morales, King Higgins, ABCDE, ABCDE. That's your name. That's what you came up with. We had Zelos, Bo69. What up? Daniel Guerrero, I see your super chat. We will get to it in the next mailbag. So, if you want to shout out, keep spamming those me's. Brian, Terrell, Mark, Zeles, King, Adrian, Paul Gaines, Danny Sandoval, Vladimir Suck Me Off. It's an elite name. If we could get some Fireball, I would appreciate that. Maybe just message the guys back there. I'm gonna do a shot of Fireball for $50 super chat that we had coming in from Patrick B. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's well worth it. I didn't plan on drinking Fireball, but you know what, Patrick, and for the nation out there, we'll do it. It's July. I actually didn't really drink all that much this past weekend for 4th of July weekend. I was going to go to Topeka, Kansas for like this 4th of July thing with my buddies, but unfortunately they I don't know, they couldn't squeeze us in the house. So we had a little bit of a staycation. It's all good though. We got 593 people watching. If you haven't liked the video yet, please do so. It does help us out a lot. And what's going to happen here on today's live show is once we go through live on YouTube, I'm going to go to Rumble After Hours. It's going to be a special segment around 5 wild trade ideas that the Raiders could do. It's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully if you're interested, you'll join the party. You'll look over there. You'll see what we got going on. It's rumble.com/Raiders Report. Let me get a sip of water here. 1 second. I just ordered a Fireball, so we'll see how quick my bartender here at Chat Sports can get me a little shot ski of Fireball. What's going to end up happening here is this. We're going to get into our next segment, which is going to be around 5 single-season records that I believe that the Las Vegas Raiders could break this upcoming season. So I'll tell you which of those records are. We'll take a trip down memory lane for all of them and, kind of get excited about what could potentially happen. Then we will do another mailbag, and then we will get into the Rumble After Hours segment. I think we do the show, Sam, and then after the segment here, then before the mailbag, we'll take the shot of Fireball for Patrick B. Does that sound good to y'all? I hope it does, because, well, that's what's going to happen. So coming up now, we got some stats. We're going to have a lot of cool projections coming up here on the Raiders Report. We good? All right, we're good. All right, that's coming up right now. Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and today's show is presented by Manscaped. You got a bush? You're rocking a George W.? Get that shit out of here. Go to manscaped.com. Use code Raiders for 20% off and free shipping on the best male grooming products out there. Manscaped is hooking the nation up. All I'm saying is, make sure your Ken Stabler's looking good, and make sure your black hole is also looking squeaky clean. Now, coming up here on the show, I got a fun segment for all of y'all, and it is this. I am going to be projecting 5 Raiders records that I believe could be broken this season, and they are single-season records. So I know some people like to do bold predictions, which, hey, I'm all on board for. Let's go a little bit bolder. Let's get a little bit more wild here. 5 Raiders single-season records that I believe could be broken. The first one up on my list is around quarterback Derek Carr. And the record that I believe that he could break this upcoming season is he's going to throw for the most passing touchdowns by a Raider ever. The record right now is currently held by Darryl LaMonica, who threw for 34 touchdowns in 1969. This is the best offense Carr has ever been on. This has got the most talent. He's got Davante Adams. He's got Hunter Renfrow. He's got Darren Waller. He's got a new offensive coordinator, new offensive-minded overall personnel. I believe Derek Carr has a realistic opportunity to throw for more than 34 touchdowns. When you go back and you look at the single-season record numbers, LaMonica, again, 34. Carr back in 2015 threw for 32. LaMonica in 67 threw for 30. Jeff George in 1997 threw for 29. And then DC and Rich Gannon in 2000 for Gannon threw for 28. Carr in 2016. When you talk about top targets, and I am confident to come up here and say that I actually believe that Derek has the best wide receiver tight end trio in the entire league. If you think that somebody else has a better trio, let me know. I'm curious because Adams, Waller, and Renfrow all have a legitimate chance to have 100 catches. All of them have a legitimate chance to bring in 10 touchdowns. All of which also have a legitimate chance to have over 1,000 receiving yards. Not many teams out there can say that. The issue is this. Yes, DC has done a good job throwing for yards his entire career. Heck, he threw for 4,804 yards last season, breaking the Raiders' single-season record. Touchdowns, though, is the issue. And when you go through, you look at Derek Carr's entire career touchdowns, well, it's been a little lackluster. Yes, 2015, 2016, 28, 32 touchdowns, that's good. But since then, I think we can all agree, it's been a little bit disappointing. Also, obviously, you can't put the blame solely on Carr. But for a quarterback who's averaged 24 passing touchdowns his entire career, for me to project 35, I don't know about y'all, I do think that's pretty bold. So go down in the comments section right now. Let me know, down in the comments, how many touchdowns will Derek Carr throw for this year? If you're watching this live, a lot of the numbers when I asked before were like 40 and in the 50s. That's totally fine. If that happens, watch parties, man, they are going to be a great time. And speaking of watch parties, if you're wondering what the heck that is, every single Raiders game, preseason and regular season, fingers crossed playoffs in the Super Bowl, I go live. It's like a 4 to 5 hour live stream. We get hundreds of thousands of people watching. It is such a good time. So if you want the normal videos you get here, subscribe. But if you want even more special videos during the regular season, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because I promise you, you don't want to miss out on our watch parties this upcoming year. Let's go to the next record that I believe could be broken. Oh, wow, look at this. This guy again, Derek Carr. I believe Derek Carr going to have the highest passer rating in Raiders history. Currently, the record is held by Ken Stabler, who had 103.4 passer rating in 1976. DC has been over 100 twice in his career, he just hasn't quite been able to get over the 102 quarterback rating hump. And, you know, this is a pretty successful season when you really think about having that high of a QB rating. And overall, throughout Raiders history, there's only been 3 guys to ever get over 100. Stabler and Derek Carr. Carr did it in 2020. He also did it in 2019. Rich Gannon at 97.3 in 2002. And then DC yet again at 96.7. I wonder what Carr could have been last season, because he was on pace to break this record, and then the whole Henry Ruggs situation happened. But now with this offense, like I said about the touchdowns, you can see it that it could potentially go down this upcoming season. So from a Carr passing rating standpoint, throughout his entire career, even though he had 32 touchdowns in 2015, the passer rating was lower. It's because he had a lower completion percentage, had a little bit of a higher INT rate in some past years, but quarterback passer rating does really implicate sometimes touchdowns, less turnovers, overall how many yards somebody's throwing for, and all that kind of good jazz. Now, when you look at the past season, in terms of passer rating, say that a few times fast, Rodgers had 111. He was number 1 in the league. Joe Burrow was 108.3. Dak Prescott at 104.2. And then Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson were tied for 4th at 103.1. So it is possible. It's just Derek Carr has to play at a high level in order to beat that record. We got 3 more records coming up for y'all, but guess what? Manscaped is hooking up Raider Nation. Make sure you use promo code Raiders at manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping. I want you to try out the Performance Package. And why should you try it out? You get the Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker, which is right next to it. Get all those funky hairs out of your nose. I don't know if you ever sat next to somebody and they got like a whole bunch of hair sticking out of their nostrils. It's kind of hard to look away. If you're on a first date and that happens, chances are you're not going to get a second date. Get the ball toner. Get the ball deodorant, because I'm telling y'all right now, it's important for your balls to smell good. Also, they throw in the most comfortable boxers in the entire world, the Manscaped boxers. So if you got a bush, if you want to make sure that your Ken Stabler isn't living in the weeds, get rid of it with the Lawnmower 4.0. It's got that little light on the end of the tunnel. That way when you got your feet up and you're trying to get into those hard-to-reach places, you can do it. Manscaped makes it easier for all y'all. Manscaped.com, promo code Raiders. All right, let's talk about the next record here that could end up getting broken. It's Davante Adams, and I believe he could have the most catches by a Raider in a single season. The record right now is held on by our good friend Darren Waller, who had 107 grabs in the 2020 season. Adams, throughout his career, has already surpassed the 107 catch mark 3 times. He's done it 3 out of the last 4 seasons, in fact. Obviously, though, when you look at Adams' numbers, you can't really look at them as apples to apples, because as much as I love DC, as much as I hope that DC has a career year, well, he's not Aaron Rodgers. And I don't know if many people are Aaron Rodgers. But in terms of receptions by season, I'm just going to look at those last 4 years. 123, 115, 111 in 2018. And in 2019, yeah, he had 83 catches, but homeboy was still dominant in the end zone. So when you look at all those numbers right there, if the Waller record is at 107, I want you to comment below. And that's what the Raiders Report does. The Raiders Report is about me depending on all y'all to not only watch the video, but participate. Like, I want this show to be like you and I hanging out at a bar, talking Raiders content, because if you're sitting at a bar and I'm the only one talking, it's going to be kind of weird. If you're sitting there and you're the only one talking, it's going to be kind of weird. So all I ask you to do is this. Look into your crystal balls, shout out to Manscaped. Let me know how many receptions for Davante Adams this upcoming season. The next player that I believe could end up breaking a record this year, it's Mad Max, Maxx Crosby, who was looking fly this past weekend at UFC event, rocking that Jason Williams jersey. Mad, I see you. Crosby, he's going to have the most sacks in 2022. The record right now is held by Derek Burgess, who had 16 in 2005. Crosby is entering the 4th year of his career, and this is a player who I believe gets better and better and better. In terms of the most single-season sacks, when you look at it from top to bottom, Crosby, to me, has the athletic ability, and he's good enough to, honestly, make that move. He's good enough to really get there. Sean Jones had 15 and a half in 1986. Khalil Mack, 15 in 2015, and then 4 players were tied for 13. One of the things that I look for, just like I look on offense, opportunity, I also look for opportunity on the defensive side of the football. And yes, Maxx, when he was a rookie, had 10 sacks, 14 quarterback hits. In 2020, 7 sacks, 13 quarterback hits. This season, he's got a real opportunity because last year, even though he had only 8 sacks, he had 30 quarterback hits. And what I look at is this. And a defense that's going to blitz more. And a Gus Bradley defense, for him to have 30 quarterback hits, shows how dominant of an edge rusher, how dominant of a defensive end he is. You have to win a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of double teams, and I went back and I watched every single snap by Crosby. The amount of times that man got held and nothing was called, I look at 30 quarterback hits and think, okay, what happens if 5 or 6 of those get turned into sacks and not QB hits? What happens if 2 or 3 of those non-holding calls turn into sacks? It's very possible that out of all these, the most likely one is Maxx Crosby getting 16 and a half sacks. That would not surprise anybody, right? So what's your prediction, y'all? How many sacks for Mad Maxx? Let me know what you guys are thinking. I know I've asked you a lot of questions here, but hey, that's what we do. That's what we like to do here at the Raiders Report. We do have one more to get to, but before I do, always remember, if you want to make sure you never, and I mean never, miss anything going on around the silver and black, if you're on Instagram, hit me up. Give me a follow on Instagram at MitchellRenz365. Make sure you're checking out my stories. I post videos. I post my daily life. I post extra news and content around the Raiders. So please don't be afraid to hit me up. The final player here that could break a record for the Raiders is Daniel Carlson. And I believe that Carlson will have the most points scored by a player in 2022. The record holder, well, it's actually Carlson, who had 150 last season, and I simply look at this. Better offense leads to more opportunities, leads to more points scored. Now, Carlson's also number 2 on this list because in 2020, he had 144. One of the things that needs to happen is, which field goals are an easier opportunity for him to get more points, but I believe that you look at his field goal numbers from last season, kicked 40 field goals, did miss 3. If you look at that and think, okay, well, if he makes an extra one, makes 2, obviously that's simple math. But on top of that, and if you're wondering how these points are calculated, 40 times 3 is 120, okay? Plus 30, there you go, 150. Does that make sense? Points, field goals, 3 points, extra point, 1 point. I believe that the extra points go up because the Raiders are going to be in the red zone more often. And yes, even though I see the field goals going down, I believe the extra point numbers are going to be a lot closer to 2020 than what they were last season. Therefore, Carlson, he's going to have more points than what he did last season. So, of course, I'm going to ask you this one, and this will be the last time I ask you this question. How many points will Daniel Carlson score this season? And saying points out loud when you're talking about the NFL does kind of sound weird. Kind of reminds me of how many points are the Mets going to score in a baseball game. First off, if you say points and not runs, I'm going to judge you a little bit. But let me know. How many points will Daniel Carlson score this upcoming season? All right, y'all, I want you to name a player that you believe the Raiders should trade because coming up here on Rumble After Hours, I'm going to do a specific segment around 5 wild trade ideas that I believe that the silver and black could do. We got 570 people watching right now. Patrick B., I owe you a shot of Fireball, which I was kind of hoping I'd get a shot. Oh, I do have a shot glass. Look at that. So this is a brand new bottle, too. Brand new bottle. Got some Fireball here for Patrick B. So, Patrick, shout out to you. Shout out to the nation watching right now. Appreciate everyone. And remember, if you guys want to send in a $50 super chat in July, we'll drink, we'll party, we'll get wild. Cheers to you. Whew. Feels good. Shout out to Patrick B. You a real one, my man. All right, y'all. Name a player that you believe could get dealt. We got Abrams from Bradley Hicks. Javier Tello says Clelin Ferrell. Nobody from Bobby. That's totally fine. Josh Jacobs from Paul Gaines. No, I don't see that happening. Daniel Caps Keenan says Foster Moreau. So, y'all, remember, we're going on Raiders Report After Hours on Rumble. And I hope you guys join me. I like Rumble. I think they're fun. They let me be me. They also help me provide even more videos like on locals, even on YouTube. I mean, Rumble's doing a lot of good for the Raiders Report. So if you could support me, get extra free videos, get extra content, that would be amazing. Shout out to two fans. Shout out to Taya. Am I pronouncing that one right? Taya and two fans right now are the MVPs over on Rumble. Since we do have less watchers on Rumble, it is easier to get a shout out. All right, we got one more mailbag, and then we're ending the live show on YouTube, and I'm heading over to Rumble after hours. Use hashtag Raiders, or you can send in a super chat like some of the people who's sending super chats recently. We got Daniel Guerrero, Clash with Zeus, Cameron Sproul, and, of course, wow, Rage Raider. Oh, boy. Rage Raider's ready to party. Mitch, throw one down for me, brother. All right, Rage. I got you. Rage Raider wants me to throw one down. I got you. Hang on a second. I'm going to pour it up. I'm going to pour one up for Rage Raider. You guys are always ready to get down, get ready to party. Here's the thing, though. I am going to be in California at an event with Graphic Raider. I can't think of the exact date. I think it's August 27th. Graph will have some of the info. I'm still waiting on all the little logistics. But if you're in California and you're going to be at this event that Graphic's been talking about, I know a bunch of other Raiders content creators will be there as well. I think Too Short's going to be performing. I don't have all the details. I'll get all the details for y'all. But I'm hoping to take some fireball shots with y'all. Hopefully chug a few beers as well. So Rage Raider, it's in the name, bro. Cheers to you, and major shout out for watching the show. It goes a long way. Cheers. All right, y'all. It's going to be mailbag time here, so use hashtag Raiders or Super Chat. Get those questions, those comments on the show right now. Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report, and it's mailbag time. Friendly reminder, use hashtag Raiders, or you can Super Chat if you're watching this on a later date. You can also send in a super thanks, and then I'll feature you on a future show. Remember, it is the off season, and this is the time of the year to turn on those notifications. You find that bell, you click all. We're also doing a competition here at Chat Sports to see who can get the most people to get their channel to have the notifications turned on. So I'm going to be giving special shout-outs all month to the people who are a part of the Noti gang. So that way you're not missing news, rumors, and you're also getting a little bit of love. So shout out to Raiders for Life, Matthew Sanchez, Jaime, Fabian, and Jake Peters. I put out a video on July 3rd like I do every single day, and these are the first 5 people to comment. So subscribe, turn on those notifications. All right, let's go to the first super chat coming in here from Daniel Guerrero. Do you think the Broncos are a Super Bowl win team or decent? I mean, I could see the Broncos winning the Super Bowl, and hopefully that doesn't upset y'all. I think it really comes down to they have a good defense, they have good skill position players, and now they have a legit quarterback in, Russell Wilson. I will be curious to see how the chemistry ends up working out, though. To me, Russ is just one of those guys. He's going to come in there. He's going to do his work. If Denver has a few injuries, I actually don't think they're as deep at certain skill positions that they are at other spots. Their offensive line is a little bit shaky to me. They're weak at right tackle, but, yeah, they're a Super Bowl caliber team. So are the Raiders. So are the Chiefs. So are the Chargers. That's the AFC West. That's the world we live in right now. Clash with Zeus. You think Rodney Hudson regrets going to Arizona? Maybe a little bit. I'm not in Rodney Hudson's mind. I don't know 100%. I know Hudson wanted to get paid. I know the Cardinals wanted to pay him, and the Raiders weren't willing to offer that money. I think from does he want to retire a Raiders standpoint, Rodney Hudson would definitely be one of those guys where I could see him retiring from the NFL, signing that one-day contract, and then retiring with us. But I also think the Raiders made the right decision of moving on from Hudson when they did, because he did really get bad pretty quickly once he left Las Vegas. What up, Cameron Sproul? Who are the sleeper teams in both AFC and NFC that could end up in the Super Bowl? Oh, boy. I mean, sleeper teams out of the AFC, I'll say one team that does make me nervous is Indianapolis. They didn't make the playoffs last year, but with that running game with Jonathan Taylor and Matt Ryan back there at quarterback, plus Gus Bradley, good defensive coordinator, he goes over to Indy. That team does scare me quite a bit. In the NFC, Philadelphia, if Jalen Hurts can take that next step, Philly's going to be a sneaky team to me. they are locked and loaded. And another team that didn't make the playoffs, the Baltimore Ravens. Like, the Ravens were the number 1 seed before Lamar Jackson went down. Jackson gets banged up, and then that team falls apart a little bit. There's a lot of really, really good teams out there. I'll also say, based on odds, the Raiders could absolutely be a sleeper team to make the Super Bowl. What up, Grandpa Deets? Should the Raiders sign another tight end? What about Jared Cook? It's funny. I actually saw an article that came out today about signing another tight end, and Jared Cook has been a name that gets brought up because he's probably the top tight end out there on the free agent market since, Rob Gronkowski decided to retire. But if you were telling me right now that you move on from Hollister, you move on from somebody else, and you needed another tight end, Jared Cook would be an interesting option. Here's my question to all of you, so shout out to Sam. Who do you think's the better player right now? Okay? Be honest with me. Better player right now. Is it Jared Cook or is it Foster Moreau? Because if you were to ask me who do I think is the better overall tight end right now, I actually might say Jared Cook. The issue is I would rather invest my time, my money in Foster Moreau because he's a younger player. He's talented. He's a big body. But in better player overall right now, I actually think it might be Jared Cook. And that's not a rip on Foster Moreau. It's just Foster needs to grow a little bit more, and that'll come, though. That'll come. What up, Javier? How are our rookies and UDFAs looking? Any sleepers? Again, since the last time OTAs and minicamp happened, we're going back to June 13th and 14th. Besides those dates, the guys haven't been practicing. Nothing's really been going on. So I would say the UDFAs that people are still talking about is the safety from USC, but that's because he's got family ties with Kennedy Polamalu, the Raiders' running back coach. He also has ties with Troy Polamalu. He's working out with him. Sam Webb, I've heard some good things about. It's just, in years past, UDFAs have made the roster because the Raiders' roster hasn't been as good. Now with a better roster, the UDFAs don't make it as often. Another super chat. Chances on Sue at this point or any other free agents. To me, the Raiders have too much money to not spend. You're looking at $20.2 million in salary cap space. It's just right now is this dead time in the NFL where players go on vacation, they enjoy their family time, and they're going to figure it out when they figure it out. I believe the Raiders are concentrating on Waller, Denzelle, Perriman, and then they're going to shift to free agency. Sue, though, I would probably put it at 25% that he ends up with the Raiders. He's going to end up somewhere. I think it's either the Vikings, the Browns, and then the Raiders. Those are probably the top 3 teams right now out for Ndamukong Suh. Sorry, man. Had to wet that whistle. Had to wet the whistle. And if you guys want even more Raiders content, I make a lot of content, y'all. Not only here on YouTube, not only on Rumble, but I also make content over on Locals. And if you're wondering some of the past videos I made, this is actually probably one of my favorite ones I've done. History suggests that Josh Jacobs won't lead the Raiders in rushing in 2022. I provided a lot of stats, a lot of factual stuff in that. If you want to check it out, please, please, please do. ESPN thinks that the Raiders are one move away. What should the Raiders do? Check that video out. I provide 2 exclusive videos over on Locals. I also go live, and I went live this past weekend with Chuck at my house, and we had a good time. It's an easier place for me to be able to connect with y'all. It's an easier way for me to answer all y'all's questions because there's a lot less people that join me on Locals. It's just the monster that it is. But if you want to join, please do. Scan that QR code, or you can go to the link that you see below, RaidersReport.locals.com. What up, rdog_76? What up, what up? With the addition of Adams, it will free up Waller and Renfro. Overall, a far superior team over previous years. It's not a question, it's a statement, and I 100% agree. LI Raider 312, what up? Raiders top 3 offense and top 10 defense. No, I won't go that far. I think they have a top 5-ish offense. The defense, though, if I'm being real with y'all, their secondary is probably bottom 10, maybe near bottom 5. Still a lot of unproven players. Their defensive tackle room is weak. I would say the Raiders are probably around like the 25th range for overall defense. That offense, though, is around top 5. It really comes down to the offensive line. If the offensive line could be an average unit, then this is a top 5 offense. Arthur Kirkland, new to the show. Do you still think Dylan Parham will start this season? Yes. I originally said that he's probably going to start at center. However, Andre James, from what I've heard, is just getting better and better, and he played a lot better at the end of last season. It sounds like he's going to have that start at center. Like, he's going to get the initial go at it. Now, doesn't mean he's going to be the starter the entire season. No, that's not what it means. I just see right now Dylan Parham most likely playing right guard. And they drafted him for a reason. They're very high on Dylan Parham for obvious reasons. He's a really good player. But if the plan is to have Alex Leatherwood at right tackle, I would say Parham at right guard, Andre James at center, Denzelle good at left guard, Colton Miller at left tackle. That would be my guess right now. But what do y'all think? Y for yes and for no. Is Parham going to start this upcoming season? I get it. He's a rookie. Some people might be afraid. Well, what about Jermaine Illuminor? Well, what about John Simpson? He was getting first-team reps. Y for yes and for no. Will Parham start this upcoming season? Cameron Sproul, what up, my dog? Weird thought. Could Gronk end up a Raider before it's all said and done? No. Gronk retired. The only way Gronk comes out of retirement, and his agent literally said this, is if the Buccaneers make a run at the end of the season, they think that they could use Gronk in the playoffs, and then he would do it. I believe it is retirement or Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady or bust. Nothing in between, so no to Gronk to the Raiders. Can you rate our offensive line and defensive line? I would say our offensive line, if I were to rate it from a scale from 1 to 100, I would say right now it's probably at like a 60, and it scares me. I know Colt Miller's solid, but besides that, there's a lot of unknowns. I believe we have the upside to get in that 80 range, if I'm being real with y'all. We also can get a little bit lower than 60. Our defensive line, if you're talking about just edge rushers, it's a 95, 96, 97 because of Chandler Jones, Maxx Crosby. But then you add the defensive tackles into that group, I'd probably put us at an 80 right now. Our DTs, from a depth standpoint alone, our DTs are arguably the worst defensive tackle room in all of football. I'd probably put the Cleveland Browns, maybe Minnesota would be up there as well for some of the worst DTs in all of football. Madman Raider, do we sign any free agents before training camp? I don't know, dude. It's honestly, like, I don't know. The Raiders have been quiet. The Raiders have been silent. You haven't really seen too many new reports out there, but it's because this is the time of the year that players aren't really connected to football. It's the time of the year where they're with their families. They're, visiting places. They're on their vacations. So I would say for right now, not going to happen, but training camp for the Raiders technically starts July 18th. For UDFAs, rookies, and quarterbacks, and then veterans report on the 20th. I do still say, though, the Raiders sign another 2 to 3 free agents before the season actually kicks off. All right, y'all, I know a lot of Raiders greats out there. Lots and lots of Raiders greats, but who's your favorite Raider of all time? Is it Ken Stabler? Maybe it's Howie Long, Jim Otto, Rich Gannon. Maybe it's Derek Carr. I don't know. Bo Jackson, Marcus Allen, tons. Casper. I mean, we got so many greats out there. Dr. Death. I mean, who is your favorite Raider of all time? Let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comments. Next question coming in here from Robert Jansen. We are still Darrell Williams or a DT or true wide receiver 2 and DB away from the Super Bowl. Darrell Williams would help. Yes, the Raiders need a defensive tackle. When you say a true wide receiver 2, see, I look at... I'm going to disagree with that one a little bit, and I do think the Raiders need an extra defensive back. That I agree with. The wide receiver spot, though, is this. Like, you have Hunter Renfrow, you have Davante Adams, you have Darren Waller. It's really hard to find a fourth better option or have 3 options that are that good. So I hear you, but the Raiders can still get better, and yes, you are still trying to improve because right now I think they're a playoff caliber team, but there is still a distinct difference between playoff and then Super Bowl caliber team. They can get there. They just got to stay healthy. Need a few right bounces as well, but I agree. They can get better. All right, y'all, we got a lot of questions that always come on the show. Please hit me up, IG, Twitter, at MitchellRenz365. I always try to keep you guys up to date, and I check my DMs. It's a lot easier for me to check my DMs this time of the year because, let's face it, I don't get as many DMs as I do the regular season. Regular season time, I'm not shitting you. I get like 200 DMs, especially after a game. I'll get 300, 400 DMs a game, but a lot of it's just people going crazy after a Raiders win or loss. It's all good. This right now is the easiest time of the year for me to actually talk to y'all. It's facts. Ori Williamson, Matt Collins think he could get cut. I don't think he's going to get cut, but I also don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities because Matt Collins to me is an athletic receiver, but he's not a good route runner. And if the Raiders, let's say, go out and they add an extra receiver or whatever, to me, Matt Collins is the 5th best guy on this team. I believe Keelan Cole's better than him. Demarcus Robinson's better than him. And if the Raiders aren't 100% sold on Matt Collins' athletic ability or his receiving ability, you could see them potentially keep somebody like Tyron Johnson who gives you special teams value, where Matt Collins doesn't really give you any special teams value. Raiderman01, Mitch, why don't we ever talk about speed? Will Fuller just win, baby? I don't talk about Will Fuller a lot because I believe availability is important. And Will Fuller, his entire career, has always been injured. And even last season, the dude had 4 catches for 26 yards. 3 of those catches came in week 1 against the Raiders. I get it. Will Fuller is a phenomenal athlete. When he's healthy, he's a great player. But at wide receiver isn't a major, major need. If Fuller wanted to come in on a 1-year vet minimum deal with a lot of incentives, yes, that I'd be interested in. But he signed a $10 million contract last season. I don't think a 1-year prove-it deal is going to happen for Fuller. All right, y'all, we're getting ready to wrap up the Raiders Report here on YouTube and head over to Rumble and Rumble only. So remember, I go live every single Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific. The link is below. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on those notifications, and if you know a friend who watches the show and they're not subscribed, tell them. Make an account and subscribe to the Raiders Report. We have the most views, most watchers, most diehard fans for a reason, because we also have that commitment to excellence. So please hit that subscribe button. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to end the live show. We're going to head on over to Rumble, and I'm going to do 5 wild trades that could end up going down this season. So, and it's like could happen, right? I don't think they're going to happen, but I wanted to have a little bit of fun. It's July, and you know what? We're going to let our hair down. We're going to go Raiders Gone Wild. That's what you're going to see. So we're heading over to Rumble right now. Rumble.com/Raiders Report. And Sam, I think the next one we'll do is just, we'll shout out Raiders. We'll give Raiders, you know what I mean? Instead of sleeper, we'll do Raiders for a shout-out over on Rumble. That's perfect. That looks great. All right, y'all, we're getting ready to head out of here right now. So cheers to everyone who was watching over on YouTube. We are going over to Rumble in 3, 2, 1.